we're going to be describing the different varieties of how we can explain velocity. Velocity in general is a vector quantity that includes not only the magnitude or the size, the rate at which you're moving in, but it also includes direction. And this is key because we can have a very large speed, but if we end up back where we started, we don't have a true direction. So let's look at this really quick. Speed again was the rate at which a moving object moves, or a rate of travel. So velocity is the rate at which an object is moving. In other words, its speed and the direction. So we have to include it. Storms, when their weather people are describing a storm, they always tell us not only the speed at which the storm is moving in, but they also give us a direction. This way we can tell whether we have to look for shelter or if we're going to be okay. So here's an example. The storm is traveling at 50 meters per second. There's my speed. Southeast direction of where? El Paso. So it was giving us a frame of reference. It's going southeast from El Paso direction, and here is my speed at 50 meters per second. So, like I said, we have a couple of ways of looking at velocity in general. So the first one we're going to look at is average velocity. Average velocity describes the change in position divided by time of travel. Change in position meaning displacement, how far you are from where you started. And the amount of time it took you to do that change in distance. So we look at the triangle, meaning change, D, would be wherever you were at the final minus your initial movement. And the triangle T would be how much time it took you at the end compared to the time it was at the beginning. So we're going to look at this change of time, and sorry, that should be a T there. So we're going to be looking at this average overall. Now, if you think about a trip, as you are moving or riding in a car, we start off at one velocity, or we start off at 0, and then we change our velocity. We have to slow down because something gets in front of us. Then we speed up again to go back to our normal speed. Then sometimes we have to stop altogether. All of those are changes in velocity throughout our whole trip. So we're going to look at the average. Overall, the whole trip, how fast did I travel? That is what this average velocity is. So it's looking at the overall movement. So on average, over all that distance traveled, I was going around, say, 60 miles per hour. When in actuality, I wasn't, because I had to slow down on oncoming traffic. I had to stop if there was a stop sign, and so forth and so on. So on average, overall, that's how fast I was going. Now, we also have what we call constant velocity. If in a moving car, I want to travel at a constant speed, always traveling exactly at, say, 60 miles per hour, I can use that cruise control button that our steering wheels have. So it is traveling exactly at the same rate of motion without any change. If I was traveling between here and, let's say, Dallas on the freeway after the traffic, I could set my car on cruise control and go pretty far without having to touch my gas pedal. It is moving constantly at a particular speed without any change. That is constant velocity. With constant velocity, we are getting further and further away at the same amount. If I'm going 60 miles an hour, every hour I have traveled 60 miles. So then the next hour I have traveled an additional 60, and the next one an additional 60. So we have that constant speed, that constant rate over and over again. Now, instantaneous velocity is how fast am I traveling at that particular moment. When I look down at my speedometer, how fast am I going right there? That doesn't give me my average speed. It gives me the speed at that particular instant. Because again, we're human and we tend to increase and decrease as we travel. You know, your foot gets tired, so it relaxes. Or then you realize, oh, I'm not going as fast as I wanted to, so then you speed up again. And if you look down to check how fast you're going at that moment, that would be instantaneous velocity. And we're continually doing instantaneous velocity. And that's why eventually we go back to average. Over all the trip, this is how fast I was going.